Welcome to another episode of a Talking Point podcast brought to you by Thomas A. Public Relations in partnership with Barbados Today. Season 2 is all about the business of entertainment. So, Tracy, let's get to a talking point.
Today, we're digging into what artist development really means beyond rehearsals and performances. How do artists transition from seasonal performers to creative entrepreneurs with sustainable brands? Joining me is Adana Asson, a dynamic cultural strategist, artist manager, and creative ecosystem builder whose work champions Caribbean artistry and innovation. Adana brings years of experience connecting culture and commerce and nurturing artists to think not just about performance, but about purpose, longevity, and global strategy. Welcome, Adana, to A Talking Point.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi,
Of
Tracy.
course.
I'm so honored to be here. I'm looking forward to how this conversation goes.
I remember when I met you, I was just instantly like, oh, this light. The artists in Trinidad are so happy, so lucky to have her, with the work that you do and the energy that you put into them and the energy that you put into the industry. So we're really happy to have you just to hear your perspective just on,
Thank you so much.
what I mean, on our work and developing our industry. So let's start with your journey. Like, how did you get into the business of entertainment and into the space of the artists?
Uh, the short version of the story is that I really wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to do career-wise. I always had interest in the music that was coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, and I spent a lot of time in commutes with my dad in our car, and he would put in cassettes playing old time calypsos, and he would
Yeah.
explain them to me and say, do you know what this means? He's talking about this situation and this means this, and the storytelling. I was very fascinated by it. So it started with those car rides with my dad and my interest in music. And then at one point in time, I wanted to start a print magazine. And I couldn't quite figure out exactly how I was going to get the money to do this print magazine, but I had big dreams. And instead of doing the print magazine, I ended up doing an entertainment website. But at that point in time, a blog, because blogging is
Right.
at that point in time was what was popular, and it was called Entertainment Macro. And I started doing that, covering and sharing the stories of up and coming and even established acts, interviews, and then news and stuff like that. And then I realized somewhere in between interviewing the acts that I really could help them curate and share their stories better, because I saw that they were not able to express or share their stories properly. They didn't have the correct assets. Like when I asked for a
Yeah.
photo, there's a selfie in the bathroom with the toilet in the background, or in a car with it's posed by the steering wheel. I was just kind of like, okay, they really don't get it. And I remember having a
Yeah.
conversation with a very close friend of mine who was at that point in time my mentor, Natasha Andrews. At that point in time, she owns a production house with her now ex-husband, Sean Noel, called Mastermind Productions. And I went to her and I said, hey, I really want to do PR. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work out, but I feel as though I have something and I have all these bright ideas as to how I can help. And she said, okay, well, all the projects that come out of our camp, we're going to give them to you so that you can come up with strategies, write the press releases, pitch, try to get placements and stuff like that. And that's how I really got my feet wet. And she would help me edit and come up with story angles. And then eventually I was able to stand on my own 2 feet, where I started to, work independently. But that is the shortest version of the story. So kudos to Natasha. I always mention her as much as I can in interviews until she gets annoyed. She's like, please stop telling people about me.
I love that
No.
you do that.
Yeah.
I love that you
I
do
have to give
that.
her flowers. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Natasha is Lyrical's manager. She manages Lyrical, and she has done like extensive amounts of work in the entertainment industry as well. So I love to give her flowers because I am really standing on her shoulders. I would not be where I am if she didn't take a chance on me. So I don't neglect that at all.
Oh, fantastic. And what a journey that someone can relate to, and realizing that mentorship is so key. Can you tell us about some of the artists that you work closely with and your role with them?
Okay, so I work with Patrice Roberts. I've worked with her for maybe about, I want to say maybe about 11 years, as her publicist and also her assistant manager. So I work, I love Patrice. She has been a long-standing client and now a friend. I've worked with Kerwin Dubois. I've done work for Nadia Boys. I've done work for Nappy. I manage Nessa Preppy right now, and I do PR for her also. I manage an artist from Tobago called Adanna Roberts.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
that manage and PR. I do work for Poompa on a that doesn't really have a label, right? So I handle his stuff in Trinidad, in
Right.
Trinidad, his bookings and stuff like that, and some guidance there. I work with Lady Lava, supporting her manager, who's a very close friend of mine, and also handling her PR and strategy. Uh,
You are busy, Adana. You are busy. You listed
and I've
so
worked
many
with
people. I'm
other
like,
people, and I've worked with other people. Like yeah.
Okay, well, let's break this topic down a little more for those who might be unfamiliar with artist development because people hear artist development and they have an idea of what that is. But for
Yeah.
you, what is artist development?
I mean, I think if I have to say it simply, artist development is really just this comprehensive process, right? That you kind of put together for the overall growth of the artist, right?
Yeah.
So it's those things, right? It's like cooking a pot, and it's all those ingredients that you put in it that would ultimately cultivate the artist brand, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's public relations or branding or um songwriting, production, all those things, marketing, kind of pull them all together. And those are those little ingredients that will cook the nice pot that will assist in developing the artist. For some of them, it might be
Hmm.
vocal training, interview skills, training,
Yeah.
prep for interviews, those kind of things. So simply put, because I don't like to overcomplicate stuff, I'm going to explain things to you in the simplest form. And
Yeah.
that's really what it is.
So, given how the industry is structured in the Caribbean, especially within the soca space, how would you say artist development differs from developing an artist, say, for the pop mainstream, for the mainstream music industry in as a pop artist, like for the US and UK? Because obviously we have a different lens here. Our industry is a little more fragmented, and it's just set up a little differently. How would you say the approach is different here?
I think one of the major obstacles that the artists in the Caribbean would be experiencing, or one of the major obstacles that they have is finances, right? A lot of our artists here
Yeah.
are obviously self-sufficient, they're self-funded, they're all independent artists, so they don't really have access to, finances. So everything they have to most of the times pick and choose how or when to spend money behind projects. And because they don't have the large pool of resources, sometimes they have to kind of skim, right? And because of that, I feel sometimes they're not able to give fully everything that they want to because of those constraints. And
Yeah.
also because our music is so niche, right? It
Hmm.
takes a little more of doing if we try to look at the international markets. And even sometimes when you're from a different island, like I don't want to call smaller islands, but work with me.
Hmm.
So the less dominant islands, and let's say in the soca space, they have to work obviously way harder to break into mainstream, which is considered Trinidad and Tobago, the Mecca of
Yeah.
soca. And so, they not having the knowledge, the people, system, and obviously the finances as well. I've had artists approach me in the past, saying that they want to come to Trinidad and just the expenses associated with it, to come here. Sometimes they're willing, but they're just not able to. And because they're not physically here to work the ground and meet people, they have great projects, but obviously sometimes it just doesn't come off the ground because they're not physically here, because financially is not something that they can do, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that would really be my answer. I think that finances is one of the major issues. And of course, because our music is niche, we have to work a bit harder,
Yeah, of course.
versus the mainstream genres.
So, of course, you mentioned finances, and I was going to ask you about building a team. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about artists who would always say, I know that I need a team, but I can't pay people right now. Like, how do I even
Yeah.
begin? Where do I start? What advice do you have for an artist asking that question?
I always say look in your circle, and we all have friends who we can trust
Mhm.
that are really good at things, right? Um, and for me, like I've supported friends in the past in initiatives just based on the fact that I believed in it, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a friend who is very good at um, bookkeeping or accounting, that person can kind of assist you with like drafting budgets and stuff if you're trying to send a proposal to a brand for funding. You may have a friend who is just really great at speaking, has a great command of the English language, and a great writer, and that person can help you a little bit with PR or writing copy for your social media platforms and stuff like that. You may have a friend who is just really fashionable, right, and just never
Mhm.
realize, hey, this person can actually help me perfect my image, right? I'm not really
Yes.
great at dressing. And I want somebody, we all have the fly friend who knows how to dress, who's always well put together, hair, nails, makeup,
True.
everything, who you can lean on to say, hey, I'm trying to put together a look for a photo shoot or whatever the case may be. We
Yeah.
may have a friend who is really good with a camera, who might be good at editing and say, hey, could you please work with me on these projects? So sometimes it's really taking your ego out of the equation and asking for help, but also making sure that you surround yourself with people who are trustworthy. I believe in building teams of people who you can trust and who can grow with you. I mean, sometimes it doesn't always work that way, but it's
Mhm.
very important. I think we have people, sometimes we tend to look outside, right, at everybody and the people who everybody is using. And we have people close to us who are fully well capable to support our efforts. So I
Yeah.
would say start in your close circle. You have a cousin, a friend that's really good. You may have a friend from class who is really good at social media or editing videos, and you kind of talk to them and say, hey, this is initiative that I need support on. Right now, I'm not able to afford the finances, but what I can give to you is assisting you in building your brand, making sure that you get credit all the time. And once I reach in a space where I can remunerate you, then I would be very happy to do that. And we can discuss the rates then and there, you know?
Yeah. I love that because if you tell your story well enough and you are serious about what you're doing, you can definitely attract your team to you. You could
Of
then begin
course.
to see who can work with you, and you call that finding your tribe. Because not all the
Yeah.
time will you have the finances, but if you show that you're serious about what you're doing, the
Hmm.
strength that that other person will bring, well, they will even benefit from what you're doing.
Of
And as you
course.
say, they can grow with you, and you can grow with them as well.
Yeah, of course.
So important. So, as we're talking about branding, and let's switch the conversation into building that narrative. Can you,
Mhm.
first of all, let's talk about an example. Name a soca artist today, in your view, who has a strong, distinct brand voice, and what makes that brand stand out?
I mean, well, I think it goes without saying that it would have to be Marshall Montano. I
Right.
think Marshall has served really well. He's represented the genre exceptionally. He has a lot of skin in the game. He's a lot of experience. He has the connections. And he has been able to maneuver through this space and stand the test of time for what, 30 years?
Yeah.
Or more. He's been doing it for a very long time, so that's very commendable. I think um, when you hear a Marshall song, you know it's a Marshall song. When you see him, you know who he is. Uh, we kind of have seen his brand evolve as things have evolved. He is very in tune with what's happening in the digital space. He's very
Yes.
youthful. He keeps people around him who could continue fueling him and funneling information and trends to him. And even though the youths might say, "Oh, well, he old," I really do think that he has been able to to really take pieces of what is trending and what's happening and include it into his craft, and he's been doing it successfully. So I say, I mean, that's to me is really a no-brainer. Bill Kest also has a very strong brand
Mhm.
as well that is very distinctive. That that sound, more or less what you can expect from his brand as far as like his ethos and stuff like that. He has a very clean public image,
Yes, true.
generally speaking. So I would say Cass as well. Biasly, I could say Patrice Roberts also. I think Patrice has been doing very
Yeah.
well as far as, showing herself as somebody who's very fashion forward. She's very trendy. When she shows up, her image is always on point. She takes a lot of pride in the way that she looks. And of course, we know that we eat with our eyes. So the way that we look is very important when it comes to enticing
Yes.
audiences. But of course, there's always room for improvements and developments with any of the acts because things are changing so quickly that you really just have to keep up, right?
Yeah.
She also has a very clean public image. She's, we've worked very hard to keep it, and maintain it. I mean, generally speaking, it's also her personality. She doesn't like
Yes.
drama, so. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've said three names that all from Trinidad and Tobago, but those, I mean, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, so I'm
That's
gonna
fine.
call yeah,
Well, let's use Patrice here because, as you said, you worked with her for 11 years, so you can really
yeah,
speak to her artist development stages. Because I've seen, as a fan looking on, I can see Patrice's artist development over the years and see all the different stages in her life and see her messages, for empowering
yeah,
women. I see how her fashion has changed over the years, how much bolder she's even gone in her fashion.
yeah.
What were those conversations like when you were thinking about that brand story? Obviously, it has to be authentic to the artist, but how do you get what do the conversations sound like when you're trying to pull that out and then translate it to online?
What I would say is that we are so fortunate. The team that works with Patrice
Yeah.
generally is very aware of how she wants to be seen. Like she's very in tune with fashion and those things, right? So she would usually say, this is the look that I'm going for, this is the kind of vibe that I'm trying to um represent, and we work with that. There are times that she would come for advice and say, hey Adana, I was thinking about such, and I was wondering if it's too risky, what is your opinion?
Yeah.
Because she wants to make sure that it's received the correct way, and I'll say, okay, I understand, tell me your concerns, I'll listen to the concerns, and then I would weigh the pros and the cons, and I'll say, okay, well, these are the pros, these are the cons. Are you the pros outweigh the cons, but are you also prepared for the cons? Because we're always going to have people talking on social media. So how do we respond to unfavorable feedback for certain situations?
Right.
I think that anything that she sets her mind to, we kind of have those discussions as far as how are we going to support those efforts generally as a team. And we try our best to support her. And also, if it's something that we don't agree with, there's the opportunity to tell her, yeah, this is not, no, this is not the one. Skip this.
Right.
And she tends to listen.
She trusts you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a hard worker. She is. She
Can see
is.
that.
Yeah, she's very hardworking. May have a little bit of a competitive spirit, which is not a bad thing.
That's good. Yeah.
Quiet, competitive, and she's really just competing with herself, the last version of herself, not with anybody else. She's very big on wanting to always do better the next time around. So,
Yeah.
because when you have somebody like that, it kind of encourages you to want to do more as well to support those efforts. So that would be
Okay.
it for Patrice. Yeah.
And for emerging artists right now, they're coming up in the social media age. And I've heard artists say all the time that in creating content, they feel a lot burnout or they just kind of hate social media. Why do I have to do this? Why can't my art speak for itself? But it's part of how we communicate today. It's part of how we engage audiences. How would you encourage them to be consistent and show up authentically and to avoid burnout, basically?
Yeah. I mean, really, it's about figuring out who you are, right? That's your first thing. Who are you? What do you want people to grasp from who you are? Like, what are you trying to tell people? What's the story, right? And then also, who are those people that you're attempting to talk to? So, who's your tribe? Who's your demographic? What's your niche? And then understanding, I guess, how to speak that language. And I know it takes a little bit of giving, a little bit of doing, and eventually the content that people love is the content that will generate interest. So after you do a little bit, you would tend to see what works best for your audience, right? I also think that you should just create content that is authentic to you, not trying to duplicate what other people are doing. Just because something works for someone doesn't mean that it will work for you. So just really
Right.
stop watching other people grass. You listen, show up the way that you want to be seen, like that. I always tell people to show up the way that you want to be seen. And stand on it too, like stand on business. As if this is who you are and this is what you're trying to sell and this is the story, like don't half step.
Right.
Don't half step. Probably try bulk creating as well. I know I've heard people say that that's very helpful. So when you create
Mhm.
content, you create a couple pieces of something that so that you don't have to be doing it every single day. But you should also leave room for what if something pops up. So maybe
Yeah.
having some sort of content calendar that allows you to plan a little bit, so you don't feel overwhelmed in the
Yes.
in the moment to create. So that would be a bit of advice, I guess, as far as that is concerned.
I was talking to someone recently, and they were talking about how some artists almost prioritize other content that is not their art over their art,
Mm-hmm.
and that content leads their art versus promoting their art and having the art lead the content. And then I
Mm-hmm.
said to them, sometimes some artists are influencers in the space before they're actually artists, and they're just
Yeah,
using what is their stronger characteristic to promote their art. And sometimes it's
yeah.
okay if the other content leads the art. And some artists just show up with the music, and in between they have other content. Do you believe that that can work, or do you think the art always has to be first?
I definitely think that that could work. I feel like striking a balance is important, and you really would know what works for you. So, for example, there's this artist in Trinidad. His name is Jimmy October. I don't know if you're familiar with
Okay.
Jimmy, but
Yes.
I absolutely
Really
love the
good
way that
music.
Jimmy. Yeah, and besides that, I love how he shows up on social media, and I always tell him
Mm-hmm.
I believe that his content is so authentic, the way that he presents himself, the look, the feel of his social media, even
Yeah.
outside of the music, the content that he posts, like if he's working out, if he's out of the country, just fashion stuff when he's dressing and get ready with me, those things. His brand is very edgy. So Jimmy is somebody that I love. When he posts, I always engage with his posts. And when he sees me, he always says that Dada always shows me love on social media. And I told him, just keep it up. I really, really love the way that he curates his social media, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
intentional or unintentional, it's very authentic. And I love that about Jimmy.
Oh, wonderful. That's good to know. So all the artists listening, they can check out Jimmy October just as a form of inspiration, which is great. So let's switch gears into like building the ecosystem and creating some form of monetization. What kinds of partnerships or revenue streams can artists explore beyond the stage in the Caribbean? Like, what is the most creative and unique partnership you've ever seen in your work?
Creative and unique partnership. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. I feel like that's such a hard question. In the
The tough
Caribbean.
one? Yeah.
I might need a rain check on that question
No problem.
because I cannot think about it. I mean, of course, there are associations with partnerships with alcohol brands. We've seen all of our artists do that. We have telecoms. We've seen that. Um, I mean, I guess we could just say Rihanna. Technically, she's not. Technically, she
We
don't
cannot
count.
use Rihanna in this conversation.
Damn, we can't use Riri.
But
Some fancy girl.
maybe you can still touch on though how they can be creative in going about creating other revenue streams outside of just
Yes.
performances.
Yeah. So obviously merchandising,
Mm-hmm.
it's tied to your brand, but it's also a bit of fashion. So merchandising. Patrice actually has two things. So she has a soap line in partnership with
Oh,
a company.
I
It's
didn't know
called
that.
Cocoa Body. It's like 100% coconut oil based soap. And it's been
Very
around for a
nice.
while. Yeah. She also just started her fitness line called Trees Fitness that she is now kind of trying to push a little more to the front. So because she is so heavy on fitness and fashion, she created this, and it's something that we're trying to get out to
Mm-hmm.
the broader population. So I think things like that obviously work. Seeing how you can get tied into like alcohol brand deals, telecoms deals. Of course, outside of that, there are things like synchronization deals,
Mm-hmm.
uh, placements, publishing deals. which are obviously outside of live performances.
Yeah.
What else am I thinking about? Of course, songwriting, writing for other acts, shopping your songs around. I mean, that's outside of live performances. And it's just me talking off the top of my head, obviously. For example, like, okay, Tiana Taylor, she's involved in, like, she's a super creative. So she's directing. She's very big on fashion. So she's styling, but she's also doing her music as well.
Yeah.
Well, she said she was retiring, but now she's releasing an
But
album.
we have
But
certain
either,
limitations within the Caribbean too.
yeah,
So I guess we
of
have to think
course.
differently or more strategically when we're thinking about as an
Yeah.
artist or as a creative other ways to make money.
Yeah, so you could partner. Let's say, for example, you're an artist in Barbados and there is a fashion brand that's
Yeah.
very trendy, that's in line with your aesthetic. Then you can work with that designer to create a capsule of
Like
fashion, whether it's
that.
jackets or
That's nice.
kaftans or whatever the case may be. You could do that exclusive or one-time drop. Just things
Mm-hmm.
like that. There might be some sort of cosmetic brand, that might be focusing on perfumes or body shimmers or whatever the case may be. You could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Carnival is big in our region, so stockings, boots,
That's
sunglasses.
true.
There are a lot of things, hats, I mean, which also tie into merchandising. But if you don't want to put your own stuff on it, you could come up with your own line to push. So
Mm-hmm.
there are opportunities, socks, like there are opportunities for people who are
I
fashion
love
forward. You
that.
can get into jewelry. I mean, you want to
Yes.
sell panty, you can sell condoms. You understand? You can
Yeah.
do at
Sky's the
this
limit.
point. Exactly. At this point, you can do anything. If you're based in LA or in any state where the herbs are legal, that's something that you can get involved in as far as like
Yeah.
THC or whatever the case may be. Figuring out how you can delve into those type of markets. There are
True.
opportunities. There are white label opportunities as well. Where you have companies that have brands that or products that they want to push, and they say, hey, I can give this to you because I feel as though you have this trust, or this type of support that you could help create this
Mm-hmm.
something, and this is yours. So there are opportunities, I believe. I think it's just really because artists love plying their trade and they're in love with their craft. Sometimes they don't like to think about other things. They sometimes feel as though it's a
Yeah.
plan B or a plan
Yeah.
C. But I believe in also working smart and not overly hard. So you have to also
Exactly.
think about, the hazards of the job, and what if one day you're not able to use your voice
Mm-hmm.
anymore. In the case of those who are vocal talents, then what? You know?
Yeah, exactly. So my creatives are taking notes. You just gave some people some great ideas, Adana. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
So what
you're welcome.
advice would you give Caribbean artists on packaging themselves for corporate partnerships while still protecting their authenticity of their brand and avoiding the trap of compromising their art just for financial gain? Because I know a lot of people worry about that. Like, I would love the sponsorship, I want the funding, but I don't want to water down who I am as an artist for your corporate brand, but I
You
still
know
want the
what?
partnership.
Can I say this real plain? How plain can I be? I feel sometimes corporate does be on real shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't tell me that you're approaching an act and you know exactly what that person brand stands for. You're approaching me because you know that my brand is risky and I'm sexy and I have 1 million followers, and you want to be able to leverage on that goodwill and then tell me tone it down, right? I find that's bullshit. It's like the same thing
Mm-hmm.
getting booked for a corporate gig, and then they're telling you, don't sing this song, eh? Don't sing that song, eh? The boss could be here, the CEO, just like don't like this kind of music. Well, where you booked me for?
Why'd you book me? Exactly.
Like, if you're gonna book me with all these restrictions, why am I here? You already know who I am, you know what I stand for. Now, why are you
Yeah.
trying to tailor me in this specific way because now it's convenient to you? I feel as though when corporates are approaching these acts, you know exactly why you're approaching them. Approach them and utilize their authenticity. If they're not a good fit for you, then you should not be approaching them in the first place. It's not fair to make people compromise their art and their authenticity just because it
Yeah.
makes you feel uncomfortable. If you're approaching them, you're approaching them because you already know what they stand for. Anything else to me is bullshit.
Thank you, Adana. That was brilliant. That was brilliant. Let's move on to scaling and longevity. That was great. So talk to me about your view on collaborating. Barbadian artists collaborating with Trinidadian artists, Vinci artists. I mean, it's been happening. It's been happening for years. But is it getting better? Is there, or do you see more collaborating happening? Do you see more acceptance with it?
Well, I love collaborations. I love collaborations when they are also sincere, right? I feel as though when people have relationships and they're able to reach each other where they're at and it's authentic, it works better. So I love collaborations. I feel sometimes though there are unrealistic expectations with collaboration. So sometimes, when a less popular act is approaching a more popular act for a collaboration, sometimes the mindset behind it is, hey, I am also trying to get popular. So this is the reason why I want to work with this person. And it's not always about the art, but more about the opportunity to get forward. And sometimes that clouds the entire experience. Because I have seen people do collaborations with super popular acts and it still didn't benefit them. Yeah.
True.
Not in the long term, short term, and then after that, it just never helped months after, So I love collaborations. I feel as though when approaching someone to collab, you're also supposed to be mindful of if that person is a good fit for your brand. And what you are also bringing to the table, because you need to bring something to the table as well. Approach it professionally. When people approach me to pitch songs to like clients, or if they ask me to be a go-between, like reaching somebody else, I always say, please send a professional demo. Yeah. If you have some sort of deck where you're thinking about, hey, well, I also want to do a music video and this is what I envision, or you have a marketing plan, you can put together a few points that say, hey, this, because you're trying to entice them, you want to convince this person to work with you. So it's not only about the art, but show them that you have creative ideas, because sometimes people would look at the numbers, oh, well, this person has less numbers than me on social media, but then when they see a plan, they'll be like, damn, so smart. This is something really that I could get behind. They really thought about it, and that's what will be enticing. So do a marketing plan, do a little pitch, a PowerPoint, not PowerPoint presentation, but you get,
go on Canva and do something nice.
Of course. Yeah, take it seriously,
Yes, yeah. I like that, because one thing that we've been talking about on this show is you have to approach everything like a business. As an artist, you are a business. So when even you're reaching out for collaboration, it's almost like a company reaching out to another company or doing a partnership. It's the same approach. So be as professional as that.
Of course.
So when it comes to a global strategy for soca, how do you see that for your artists? Like, how do you plan for that? How do you prepare them for that? Do you have that in your plan as an artist manager or PR person?
I always think about the what ifs. I am an overthinker, so I am sitting here and I'm already thinking about August, right? Whether personally or professionally. So I think there's in everything you have to prepare for the what ifs. For me, as I tell people, we all talk about wants and experiences, and when we get the experience, we're not prepared for it. Or we talk about opportunities, and when we get them, we're not prepared for them. So you have to stay ready. Right? You have to stay ready. So for me, there's always a thought behind what if this opportunity comes up, right? Looking at your insights or your stats and seeing, hey, my song is thriving in these particular countries or states or territories. How can I now leverage on this type of support to get into different markets, whether it's interviews or placements or some sort of brand relationship or whatever the case may be? Those are the type of conversations that I like to have. At least I rather try and fail than fail to try, So I think that's yes, there's always a global mindset in everything that we do. I love to also make sure that we don't not remember our regional brothers and sisters, because it's also important. We're about covering ground everywhere. And of course, the notion of dancing a yard before you dance abroad is also very important in global strategy, showing what you're doing in your home country, in your territories, to then be able to use those insights to entice the global market to say, hey, I can bring this to you. this is the Caribbean diaspora or the Caribbean region that I'm now bringing to you in this space, right? And this is how it could be helpful to what you are doing. That's also important.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I agree with that one. So, big question for you, Adana. From your perspective, if we want to reduce the seasonality of Caribbean entertainment, Carnival, a particular time of year, Kadooment, any other festival, where should we start if we want to reduce the seasonality and make this a year-round celebration of sorts?
Starts with us. It starts with the creators, and it also starts with the supporters, right? There are a lot of us who only love our music during those particular seasons. So are we really true supporters of our talents? I feel as though give them a chance and also give them a chance to create art. Don't box them in.
Yes.
Not because somebody is creating soca means that they can't sing R&B or hip hop or zest or steam or whatever the case may be. It's art and they should be able to express themselves. And if somebody wants to try something different, give them a chance to try something different. Provide them with constructive feedback, but don't badger them. You know what I mean? Allow the creatives to be creative and feel confident to come to us with their art, understanding that they are trying. And of course, there are also the financial factors as well. Putting out music is not cheap. So, maybe a little bit of corporate support, places where they can access grants, them knowing how to send pitches to brands that they may not even think might be interested in supporting them, not only just thinking about large figure support, but you could still do something with a little bit as well. Starting off with a small project, you show a brand, hey, instead of going and asking for 50,000, you ask for 5,000 for a smaller project. Show them what you can do with it. So then when you go back to actually 50,000, they'll be like, you know what, I'll give 80 instead because I was impressed. So just things like that. Yeah.
I like that. And it clearly has to be a multi-pronged approach because it starts with us. So we have to learn to appreciate and love our artists. But then there's radio stations.
Yeah, it's support. It's support. It's support straight across the board. It's about support. I know that there is more to it, but it's really about support. It's about relationships. But support is what stands out to me the most. Our creatives need to feel confident to come to us when they're willing to try new things, right? They need to come to us and feel safe to share their art without being badgered and ridiculed, And I see that a lot in the space. Sometimes somebody tries something different and who he feel he is, who she feel she is.
We like to box people in too much.
Exactly. If a soca artist feels as though they want to sing gospel, okay. Leave them to sing gospel, then between them and God. It's not your business. Is either you like it or you don't like it, So that's really where I'm at. Somebody wants to sing chutney, or they want to try different genres, they want to mix it up, they want to add a little R&B here and there. Allow them to express themselves and let them feel safe, and we provide them with respectful feedback if we're not loving it, but they must feel safe.
Okay, so Adana, I had a last question for you, but I'm going to change it up because I think this is going to be a better question because we have creators and artists listening. What are the top 3 things that artists need to know from your perspective? Artists who are, they're out there, maybe they had a year or 2 already on the circuit and they just want to push, they have a dream for themselves as a soca artist or maybe just as a music artist, period. What are your 3 top tips for the artists?
You need to know yourself, who you are and how you want to be seen. Very important, right? You need to know the role of a manager, right? And how a manager can work for you. There are a lot of people presenting themselves as managers who are booking agents, who don't know how to assist you with growth and development, who don't have the relationships. So I think that is also important because a lot of times the first thing an artist will say is, oh, I need a manager, right? But understanding exactly what that entails or who that person should be is very important. So knowing yourself, being able to choose a right manager and understanding what a manager is. And I want to say honing your skill. So whatever you are selling to your audience, whether it's your vocal whether you're a dancer, whatever the case may be, making sure that you're able to do it to the best of your ability. So the way that your music is produced and shared with the public, if you have to go take vocal training, those kind of things. I know artists who perform, who rehearse once a week, just home with a DJ, and they'll rehearse because, they just want to make sure that the set is tight and so I would say that those are the three things: honing your skill, understanding the role of a manager and how to choose one, and knowing exactly who you are.
I want to double down on that, guys. I fully agree with Adana. I used to do artist development, and those are the top things: knowing yourself, and you will know yourself in different stages, and you'll get closer to yourself as you continue to put out your art. But you have to make that intentional. You get closer to your voice, and that part about knowing a manager. Yeah, because you're right. Anyone will
come. Lots of horror stories.
Yeah. Right. So we know that.
We all know. We all know the horror stories.
Exactly. Know yourself. Know what a manager is and what a manager is supposed to do, and hone your skills. So then, if any artists, any creatives want to find you, maybe just to get advice, maybe a consultation, maybe they want to hire you as a manager or a publicist, where can they find you?
So it's Creativa. So Creativa. So creative, drop the E, put an A, Creativa Media PR on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Email contact is available. Send me a DM. You can email me. I'm pretty straightforward. Yeah, that's it. And www.creativamediapr.com, even though I need to update my website. But yeah, I have a website.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You have a website. So perfect. That was Adana talking about artist development. It isn't about building stars, but it's about building legacies. So thank you, Adana, for sharing so many powerful insights about how Caribbean artists can move with intention, clarity, and expansion.
Thank you so much for having me. I applaud this initiative. I think it is very necessary, needed. So keep up the great work that you and your team are doing. And I wish you guys immense success in all your endeavors. And again, thank you so much for having me.
From storytelling to scaling, we're reminded that the business of art starts within. To know where to find Adana, and be sure to also follow Barbados Today on Instagram, thomas.apr, visit thomasapr.com, and follow the hashtag A Talking Point Podcast.
Thanks, Tracy. This episode of A Talking Point Podcast was brought to you by Thomas A Public Relations in partnership with Barbados Today. Remember that new episodes drop every Tuesday right here on Barbados Today's YouTube channel, and then on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Until next time, this has been A Talking Point Podcast.